All right, now number 23, this has to do with a mixture type problem. And we're going to set it up similar to the way we did it before in the previous section, except that instead of just using one variable all the way through, this problem specifically says you must use system equations to set up and solve. So if this problem does appear on the final exam, it's going to have the same instructions. It's going to require you to set up systems equations. That means I got to have x and y, two different variables in this one. So let me go ahead and read it to you. Again, it's on the sample. You refer to that. Chemist is mixing 12% indicator solution and 20% indicator solution to get 10 gallons of a 14% solution. Find the number of gallons in each solution. Again, you must use the system equations to set up and solve. Like we did these before in a previous section, I think it's going to be easier to get all your information out of that word problem by setting up a table here. Okay, so the gallons, it's asking us for find the number of gallons in each solution. There's a 12% and a 20%. So in this case, I don't know how many gallons of each I'm adding together. So there's my two variables, my x and my y. Now we do know that we're eventually going to get 10 gallons of the 14% solution. So I know I'm going to have 10 gallons finally when I mix them together. So I'm mixing these two together, I'm adding these together to get the last one down below. Now for the decimal rate right here, the first one is 12%, so I'm going to put 0.12 there. The second one's going to be 20%, so I'm going to put 0.2. And the last one says that I got a 14% solution is the one I got to get as a result. All right, so now I have this setup that came directly from the problem itself. To get the amount of gallons of the indicator, I got to multiply these across all the way through. So I'm going to do x times 0.12, so I have 0.12x. I got a 0.20 or 0.2, I can write that as a y. And I'm going to do 10 times 0.14, basically moves the decimal place one place over, and I get 1.4. Now, your two equations that you're going to use here, they're going to come from the first column and the second column to get my two equations. So I have x plus y equals 10. That's the first one. I'm adding, remember I'm mixing the first two together to get the bottom one. Same thing here. I'm doing 0.12x I'm mixing together with 0.2y. That's going to equal 1.4. So right there, that's going to be our system of equations. So you got to make sure that you show this to get full credit, because it'll say somewhere on the test that your setup and your equations is part of your answer. So you got to show that in order to get full credit. You can't just do guess and check and guess around and put the answers down. If you don't have any algebra set up, you're going to get most of the points taken off on this one. You got to make sure you show the algebra setup. Now, as far as solving this is concerned, we can do it a couple different ways. We could do substitution or elimination. I think in this case it might be easier to do elimination. So let me go ahead and erase this for you, and then I'll do elimination. I'm going to take this equation here and I'm going to solve for either x or y. It doesn't matter which one. So in this case, if I have x plus y equals 10, I'm just going to go ahead and solve for x. Again, it doesn't really matter which one you solve for. Either way, you'll get the correct answer. But in this case, I'm just going to go ahead and do y equals 10 minus x. And I'm going to take this and substitute it into the other equation we haven't used yet. So 0.12x plus 0.2 times 10 minus x equals 1.4. So now that I've done that, I've eliminated the y, and so now I have only one variable left to solve. So, well, you got all that already. I'm just going to go ahead now and solve this equation for x. Then I can put that equation, put that answer back in here. I'll know the y. Okay, so 0.12x plus, I'm going to multiply this. I'll get 2 minus 0.2x equals 1.4. Be really careful when you do this together. You can even check it with a calculator to make sure you did it right. This is 0.12 minus 0.20. If you take 20 minus 12, you'll get 8. Now you're not going to get 0.8 here. You got to have 0.08. Now the 0.2 is a larger one. So this, you're actually going to get negative 0.08 as a result. So be really careful. This is where most people make the mistake, is getting the wrong one. You don't want to do all that setup correct and then get points taken off because you misadded the decimals. Okay, so it's negative 0.08x plus 2 equals 1.4. We're going to subtract 2 from both sides. Again, be really careful when you subtract those decimals. Okay, so if I take 1.4 and subtract that one, then what I'm going to get is negative 0.6. So it's like a 2.0 minus 1.4, so you get a 0.06, 0.6 left over. Alright, now we're going to divide. Divide by negative 0.08 on that. So when I divide by that one, what I get is, I get 7.5 gallons. So this, because of the way I originally set it up, this one here is going to go next to the 12% because that's how I set up the particular equation. So I have 7.5 gallons there. Now what about the 20%? Okay, well 20% is represented by the y. I already have y right here, so y is equal to 10 minus 7.5, and I'm going to get 2.5. So 2.5 gallons I get for the 20%. So again, this is the correct way of doing this by using system of equations.